Hey guys, this is Matthew Ranger, also known as VodkaHaze for CardRunners.com. And today we're going to be doing a pure theory classroom style video, and it's really going to be a class into basic microeconomic theory for poker. We're just going to look at some microeconomic concepts that we can directly apply into poker, and just kind of use that in our understanding of poker as a greater game. I'm going to try to have this be applicable to pretty much any game. It's going to be straight theory. I think there's one hand example at the very end of the video, and that's going to be about it. Let's jump right into content, and we'll see what, hopefully I can teach you guys. So the first concept everyone's probably heard 1,000 times about is the Nash Equilibrium. John Nash, who had a movie made about him, won a Nobel Prize for having that concept made somewhere in the 50s, and I think he had the Nobel Prize like 4 years later. It states that there's a unilateral solution to non-cooperative games. It's really good to be picky on the definitions when you come to overarching things like these, so that non-cooperative games, obviously poker is, unless you're cheating with a friend. And a unilateral solution means that you would only lose to deviate from that strategy if your villain or villains were always playing the same strategy. So if you're two players and the other guy is playing the Nash Equilibrium strategy and so are you, then if you deviate, you're going to lose by default. You can't win more, and you probably can't have the same results from deviating from it. And if you're sitting in a 4-player table and everyone is playing the Nash Equilibrium and you start to deviate from that strategy, then you're going to lose by default too. Now you might come up to me and say, this is poker, and what if I decide that I'm just going to bluff 100% instead of bluffing 60% of the time in a certain spot? Wouldn't he just be wrong by folding some amount of the time? Well, the answer is you might profit from that specific hand right there, but over the long run, bluffing that much is going to mean that either you're going to destroy your value betting range, or there's going to be some other effect that's going to have a greater loss than the additional win from you're changing a frequency in a certain spot. It's also good to note that the equilibrium strategy can be mixed. So that means that if you have pocket aces, then that means that maybe sometimes you want to limp it and sometimes raise it, or maybe you always want to raise it, but sometimes you want to min raise it, and sometimes you want to 3x, and sometimes you might have the 7x. Who knows? We're pretty freaking far from Nash Equilibrium play in almost any no-limit or pot-limit poker form that we've seen, except maybe some two-street ones like 5-card draw. Heads-up poker is a zero-sum game. Zero-sum means that anything that one player wins, the other guy loses in equal amounts. So, if your strategy wins you 5 BBs per 100, then you're heads-up against another player. Since poker is a zero-sum game, that implies he's losing 5 BBs. With rake, obviously, it's going to be different, but we don't look at rake in theory. So the main interesting property of the Nash Equilibrium strategy heads up in a poker game is that the small blind plus the big blind strategy is equal to or greater than 0 BBs per 100 in the long term. The Nash Equilibrium strategy can't lose. That's the main part if you're heads up. Obviously, we're not going to look at the 3+ handed games right now. But yeah, this doesn't necessarily mean that the BB strategy itself is an automatic 0 BB or more winner. And that doesn't mean the small blind strategy itself is a 0 BB or more winner. It's that your overall strategy for the whole game is non-losing or break-even.